So, ladies and gentlemen, today I want y'all to pay close attention because they talked about the pineal gland, the liquid that goes to the pineal gland, how powerful this is, how you can ascend to a higher state, and also to your mind as well. How the pineal gland upstairs, they call it, is the heaven, the Megad, your heart, and a whole bunch of other stuff you need to know about your body. Because this book, some portions of this book, King James and some other books, literally was written about your body because these things, before they came here and broke through what they were supposed to come to, supposed to come here at all. They literally visually dissected you and took notes, and then they put that in religion and in your book after they twisted it. Pay attention.
Thalamus, an egg-shaped organ in the middle of the head. When it crosses this pneumogastric nerve, this is called the crucifixion. The oil is not killed and destroyed, but it is magnified 1,000-fold. And the oil then touches the optic thalamus and for 2.5 days remains in a condition that is called dead, that is considered to be dead, and then reaches the pineal gland after 2.5 days and illuminates the optic thalamus and the pineal gland. The optic thalamus was known as the light of the world by the Egyptians and the Greeks because they knew their physiology and anatomy, and they knew that this precious oil, they knew that it would ascend eventually, and that the enlightened portion of mankind were able to cause this Christ oil to ascend so that it would ascend to the optic thalamus and cause it to be lightened. What in turn happens is that millions of brain cells that were dormant are now awakened. There are practices and there are things that are very, very detrimental, to this oil. For instance, overeating and alcohol and sex practiced at the wrong time. These destroy the seed, and this is what is known as eating from the tree of life. Because you see, the ancients knew that once the oil is depleted because of riotous living, the fleshly organism dies. Death results from using up all of the oil. You see, the oil that descends from the cerebrum is known otherwise as the manna from heaven. You see, because heaven means heaved up, and the head, the cranium, the dome which sits on top of the torso, that was known as the heavens, you see. And the heart area and the heart chakra was known as the Midgard, or the middle garden, and the generative area was known as Sodom and Gomorrah. Whereas the Garden of Eden and the land flowing with milk and honey, that's upstairs. In fact, the pineal gland produces the honey, a secretion known as honey, which has DMT in it, and the pituitary body secretes the milk. This is the milk and honey. And the land flowing with milk and honey is upstairs. And the sacred secret is the secret of this oil and how to rise the oil and raise it so that one is illuminated and opened up to the higher mind. As above, so below, you see. This is a sacred secret simply because the secretion which comes from the sacral plexus is one of the most important things that we need to know for physiological regeneration. You see, by saving the seed, one can actually live longer. In fact, the ancients used to live for thousands of years by protecting and keeping this secret and guarding it. The Egyptians built ascension chambers, pyramids, for this very purpose, and they taught the science of respecting and keeping and guarding and looking after this beautiful oil. And if you know the Gospels well, you will know all the scriptures that are referring to it. You see, I am the light of the world. He that follows me shall not walk in darkness. The light of the world is the optic thalamus. Keep your eye simple, for if your eye is dark, your whole body will be dark. That eye has always been known as the third eye. In fact, it's the spiritual eye. And this is what the so-called Apostle Paul was talking about when he referred to the sacred secret of the Christ within, the Christ that dwelleth within. For you see, the kingdom of God is within. It's not without. And in fact, the words of Jesus are pretty clear where it says, do not be looking out there, for the kingdom of God will not come with striking observableness. Don't look here and don't look there, because there will be deceivers saying, oh, there he is, here is the Christ, there is the Christ. Because the process is within.
That's right.
And unless one is able to raise...
We're going to pause real quick. So that's very true. See, so what's going on is even if some interpreters who, like, not saying that Paul didn't make any mistakes, but Paul definitely taught some bullshit at one point. All right? But when he finally supposedly turned his life around, well, they say he was against what you call Christ. And to be honest with you, that was really King David. King David's not the real name because you go further, you find there's another name that you get the Tote, plus John, all that stuff. And the problem with that is that these people named their sons, who were kings like our kings that we named, the same names of all the kings that we had. So we're getting names, but we're not getting the right people. They're talking about a name that we would have most likely used, or a similar name we'd have used, but not the same person, because they named their people the same names. You see? So that's how they was able to get by on you. And then not only that, but they teach these pastors in these schools to teach you in a twisted fashion so that you will sit up there and be deceived. These pastors don't know. Well, some of them don't, some do. But the ones that don't know, they are unfortunately deceived. Otherwise, they wouldn't be teaching. They would teach the right way. And they definitely have to apologize to everybody for teaching the wrong way. It's not their fault they were taught that way because they went to the school. Some really thought they was doing right. And unfortunately, as we know, that is what it is. And just for those who want to say I'm talking trash, my dad's a pastor, so I mean, what can you really say? I'm literally, you can say I'm neutral as possible. But the fact is, I grew up in the church, so I know, you know what I'm saying, what they do. And I already know how they try to get their sons groomed to become deacons and reverends and so forth to try to give me a pastor. I already know how they try to force you to teach. What they didn't know when they was trying to get me to teach is that people on the streets was telling me to teach, but they weren't talking about the teaching that the pastors were talking about. And the pastors thought they were talking about the teaching that they were talking about, but the pastor was telling me to teach. The pastor didn't realize that they weren't even talking about the teaching that they were used to talking about. Because, see, source is in all of us because we all are collective, but it will literally use someone who doesn't know to get you to go the right way. But of course, at the time when you're hearing something like that from a pastor, you think he wants you to teach the same stuff he wants you to teach. Funny how it works. When the streets tell you to teach, you wonder what the fuck they talking about when you sleep. You see? So there's a lot of things you have to realize that they literally brainwash these people. They send them to schools to get brainwashed, and they turn around, they brainwash their families and get them to do the same job they was taught. And they don't pass to become what they call a pastor or something like that, where these titles you want to give themselves, unless they actually prove by a group of their peers. So that tells you that if they ain't gonna teach what they teach in the schools, they ain't gonna let them teach. So it is what it is. They get down, they sign with that CO3, whatever you want to call it, tax exemption. Then they turn around and they're down with the program. So certain things they ain't even supposed to talk about. You see, you gotta go to see the Pope and kiss his hand. And they kiss the white Pope's hand, not even knowing there's a black Pope behind the white Pope who's running things, who was actually the black Pope was ran by the Blackamoors, who started all this mess up first stuff in the first place. The Moors are the same ones that go with the Hebrew Israelite stuff that y'all pushing now, and y'all don't even know y'all doing a more religion. This is why I told y'all need to follow the spirit of truth. Spirit of truth is in you because you are that spirit. Greater than he is in me. You are in your body. Your body is the soul. You are the spirit. You talking about you. You've been running around chasing you this whole time. You're chasing heaven, but everything's in you. That's how I've been telling y'all for the longest time. You're just trying to rediscover you. You're looking for God. Look in the mirror. You rediscover him by looking in the mirror. You just saw his face. That's why it says when you look upon a man, you're looking at God. Yeah, you're looking upon his face. You're looking upon her face. All right. I'm not going to use certain terms because we don't use that word God either because it's a pagan word. But you know what I mean. There's they use a lot of wordplay. That's another thing they did with y'all in these churches and religious. They use a lot of wordplay to twist these meanings and stuff. And now it's broken down. You're like, well, that ain't nothing like what the pastor was teaching. Ain't that something?
That energy and get out of the bottom chakras. You see, the bottom chakras deal with sexuality, strife, envy, power, greed, wealth, and all of those things. And if one is constantly seeking those things and constantly eating of the fruit of the tree of life, you see those beautiful nerves, the pneumogastric nerve system, they are responsible for bringing the oil back up, those beautiful spiritual presence. And we are the ones who are responsible for channeling that oil, that Christ seed within, so that it eventually is crucified in the middle of the head. But you won't get any of this in church. This is esoteric truth. Exoteric truth denies this and has been perpetuated for the last few thousand years by so-called Christian churches in order to deny and hide the true story of physical regeneration. Until such time as this process has occurred, we will have old toxic blood in our physical organisms. And in order to regenerate and produce new blood, the oil must be raised to the optic thalamus, and healing can occur. And in the Bible, this is known as tithing. You see, this is why the Bible says you must return 1/10 to the Lord. Remember, the Lord, the Lord,
So
refers to the...
let's talk about you. You must do that for yourself. You see, it does help you sustain life some. But the truth of the fact of the matter is that you really want to get down to it, man. It was the X. That's why they call us the X-Men, or Generation X. And that Y was added somewhere along the line, was not supposed to be added, and that made you live shorter. These demons came down here, these evil Anunnaki. There's some good guys, but I don't want the bad people right now. The evil Anunnaki had the nerve to go ahead and shorten your lifespan because they want you to worship them. They got mad. Some of them got mad when they found out that you is better than them. When they found out that you are gonna be way better than them and that you are better than them. They got mad when they thought they could try to manipulate you and trick you with the mind fuckery and you wasn't going for it. The book says when they first came, y'all was shooting, we shot arrows at him, missiles, right? Which is basically missiles at the time. So they came back with spells and magic. Ain't that something? And then you go to a whole other scene about what talks about one of our prophets. Of course, they got the name wrong. We already know this because all names in the books. This is wrong by design. They turn around and say he bowed down to the ship and said, "This is the Most High's glory." Ain't that something? So why he do that unless somebody put that in there? Or B, they were doing some of the stuff, sacrificing babies, but we wasn't doing that. Other folks are doing that. Sumerians are doing that. And we weren't Sumerian. So we didn't do that. See? So they try to put your name in a place that you wasn't at and you was in America, but they try to say that we all abroad actually. But they try to turn around, they try to say, oh, you was the guys that were doing all these things and this is why you failed. No, it is simple. Curious George, man. What's the one thing that if you, I'll use the word, we don't really use it, but just for sake of talking. You God, and you know everything, but there's one thing you don't know. Guess what that is? What it's like not to know that you're God. That means you got to walk. You ain't flying. You ain't gliding. You ain't disappearing one place to the next. You're not doing all that stuff. You got to get on a bus. You got to drive a car. But then at one point you still had your abilities when you failed, but then you didn't really realize that, hey, man, maybe I should be going the other way. Instead, you start being more like them. And yeah, you could say some was through slavery, but there was some through choice, and that's a bad thing. So it's time for us to had to breathe. It's time for us to start seeking and spreading truth as a newborn babe and stop thinking we know it all. Many of y'all have said, well, y'all said a couple of things. Some of y'all say I'm the truth. And I say I don't know everything. Nobody does. Some of y'all say you've been the truth. Some of y'all say I think I know it all. I don't. And I'll say this: no matter how much I do know, there's no way, and I don't think anybody could know it all until the day of remembrance. You remember everything, including the first lifetime you ever came to this place. You've been fighting this battle for a long time. So these are opening, unlocking key to some things that they told you that was wrong, and we corrected it to unbrainwash those particular sectors that they taught to you.
Gold. You see, this is how we turn lead into gold. Our spinal cord is like a thermometer. And as the mercury rises with warmth, the more so with enlightenment and consciousness and knowledge, we are able to raise the condition of this oil. And you see, not only is physical regeneration a result of this, but also spiritual regeneration. And one is able to experience the higher mind and clairvoyance. You see, mediumship occurs down in the solar plexus. There are 4 brains in the human body. The cerebrum, what is otherwise known as the God brain, the cerebellum, which is the man brain, the medulla oblongata, which is responsible for the involuntary actions in the body, such as breathing and blood circulation. And the 4th brain is the solar plexus, which is more related to the animal instinctive brain, which receives images from the ether, from the air, you see, just like the animals do, and they react correspondingly without reason and logic, instinctively. So you see, this is why it is so important to raise the oil, so that one can get out of the lower mind. The lower mind is the solar plexus, and wrought with problems. You see, ascension is within. One ascends to heaven, the heaved up place, the dome of the cerebrum. You see, those 2 flaps, those hollowed out hemispheres of the cerebrum, are otherwise known as the cherubim. You see, in the Bible, God says to Moses, you must build the Ark of the Covenant with 2 cherubim above the Ark, covering over. And inside the Ark shall be placed the manna and the law of God, the 2 tablets. Well, I'm here to tell you that the optic thalamus is the Ark of the Covenant. There awaiting is the optic thalamus.